Every company is racing to adopt AI. The next generation of AI professionals are already here. They think differently, they move faster, and in many ways, they're miles ahead in how they learn, collaborate, and innovate. At a time when AI capability is outpacing workforce readiness, understanding how talent and leadership evolve together is critical. Today, we're joined by Emma Rattray, Google DeepMind scholar, engineer, and one of the most insightful emerging voices in the AI space today. Her journey began in chemical engineering, and she's now at the forefront of AI research. Her story will tell us a great deal about where the AI industry is heading. So in this conversation today, you'll hear the biggest lessons that Emma's learned from moving across industries into AI. We'll hear some advice from her to leaders of organisations about how they build AI capability right now, and then what the next generation of AI talent values and how they will shape the future of work. So Emma, let's get right into it. For those who don't already know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name's Emma. I would describe myself as a full stack and AI engineer. And I've also recently completed my master's in artificial intelligence at the University of Edinburgh, where I also was awarded a fully funded scholarship from Google DeepMind, which is pretty cool. And alongside that, I've also been doing something I call learning in public or building in public, where I've basically been working on fun mini side projects and been posting about them on LinkedIn and social media.
And that was how we sort of came across you. You came to one of our events and you did a brilliant talk. And so sharing your journey online recently, did you expect to connect with people in the way that you have? And did you expect the response that you've had?
Honestly, no, it was kind of a shock. I was kind of overwhelmed with how much positive feedback I had when I first started posting online. And initially, I really just started it because I was kind of doing these mini projects for myself and for my own confidence. And then I was kind of posting it online as a way to help hold myself accountable. So then when I saw that people were actually interested, I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, I'll just keep going with this.
And you were the first person that I had ever seen, publicly share that journey and all of it, all parts of it, the good, the bad, and what I'm sure is, the ugly at times. Tell us a little bit about that pivot. So from chemical engineering into AI, how did that come about?
Yeah, it's a bit of a squiggly journey, I guess. And I guess starting at the beginning. So I basically chose to study chemical engineering when I was 16 or 17 in high school. I was thinking about what I was going to do next. And I did what a lot of people do, which is just pick what I'm good at and something I enjoy. So I enjoyed maths and physics and chemistry. So some kind of engineering kind of made sense to me. So yeah, I went and studied chemical engineering. I liked it in some ways. I found it really challenging. It was like a good opportunity for me to grow and learn. But like about halfway through my degree, I realized I honestly didn't really like it that much. And I didn't really see myself as a chemical engineer in the future. And around the same time, I had this coding class that I became absolutely obsessed with. Like, I loved it so much. I think all of my classmates around me were really struggling with that course. I just really found it was like the way my brain sort of clicked. So yeah, in my spare time, I then sort of taught myself other coding languages and was doing my own projects on the side as well as university. And yeah, that summer, I decided not to apply for chemical engineering internships. And I was like, I'm just going to kind of shoot my shot and apply for software engineering internships, even though I don't study computer science. And I landed a summer internship at IBM, which was awesome. Like, it was such a fun experience. And I think that really cemented for me, like, I want to work in tech. Like, I had so much fun. Like, I was working on really hard problems, learning so much stuff. And I was like, this is the industry I want to work in. So then I went back to university. I joined JP Morgan as a software engineer intern, and then later as a software engineer. And alongside my day job there, I was also involved in their communities of practice. So they have special interest groups like outside of your day job to like connect with people who are also interested in the same areas of tech as you are. And I was quite involved in the AI ML group, and I was doing a course with them. And I realized that a lot of the maths and stuff that I had learned in my undergraduate degree actually really overlapped with a lot of the maths in machine learning. And I really loved that. I was like, actually, this is like an itch that I haven't really fully scratched yet. And I always kind of had this idea that maybe I would like to go back to uni at some point, but this time to do something that I properly loved. And I was like, maybe this is it. So I started applying for AI masters. So I think I had two moments, like learning to code was like my pivot into tech, and then realizing that I could align some of the skills that I had done in my chemical engineering degree with machine learning was like another moment for me where I was like, okay, maybe I can move into the AI space now.
And such a big, brave move to make. You know, you've committed all this time to choosing something, picking something, and a lot of people would have just stuck with it for that. So kudos to you for being brave enough to follow your dreams and your passion.
Thank you.
So when you first got the DeepMind scholarship, because that is big, what did that mean to you personally?
Yeah, it was big. It didn't even feel real. I feel like so many things have happened the past year that haven't even felt real, and that was definitely one of them. I think for me, I was struggling at the time with my confidence quite a lot, like personally and professionally. So for me, that was like a huge kind of piece of external validation, like that I am and was and still am like very technically capable, and being recognized as like one of the like top students in my cohort and being like awarded that scholarship like meant the world to me. And it was kind of like what I needed to kickstart myself on like this new chapter in this new section of my journey.
And I think it's really important to pick up here just, you know, that vulnerability that you show in telling people the fact that you were struggling with your confidence, because I think it would be very easy to see how you share things and publicly share things and could look like confidence is at an all-time high. So I think it's a really important message to share with people, to say that actually that's not always how it was. So thank you for being that open and vulnerable.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So what kind of research did you focus on during your master's? Tell us a wee bit about
that. So yeah, the masters were super interesting. The first 2 semesters of the degree are like fully taught courses. So I sort of started out with like traditional machine learning, data science skills, then moved more into like natural language processing, computer vision, reinforcement learning. And then at the end of those 2 semesters, I then started my research projects. And that was like a lot of fun. And I was also trying to figure out if I wanted to continue doing research. So there was a lot of experimentation for me there personally as well. But I found myself doing a robotics research project, which was super cool because I had done nothing with robotics before. And it's always been a field that I've been super interested in. So to have the opportunity to do that, even though I knew nothing about it, was amazing. But I was essentially working on kind of like, they're called like computer vision models. So that's essentially how the computer or robots see and interpret their world around them. But I was specifically focusing on these types of models in very cluttered environments. So typically when you see like a really cool robotics demo, the robot might like reach out and grab like an apple, for example. But then the apple is like so far apart from like the orange. So it knows to go and grab the apple, but that's not the reality of the world we live in. Like stuff overlaps, like shadows of objects go across other objects, like stuff is obscured, like you might have a big messy room or a big pile of objects. So my project was really focused on like, how do robots see in like the cluttered world?
So interesting.
Yeah.
So my mind is boggled already. And so, you know, education, now we look at getting into industry. So you worked at Procter Gamble, IBM, which you've mentioned, JP Morgan, all massive names and all very different environments. What did each of those experiences teach you about how AI fits into the world of business, regardless of the industry?
Yeah, I guess when we talk about AI fitting in like to the world of business, it does come back to how does like tech and software and stuff fit in general. And so when I started at P&G at Procter Gamble, that was before my tech journey began, but it was like one of my first jobs. So I feel like it was a very formative part of like my career. And yeah, I think for me at Procter Gamble, it really taught me how to be like very user-centric about the products I'm designing, everything I'm working on. They were obsessed with how do we make the product like as luxurious for the customers as possible? Like how do we move the needle on like the customer experience? And that was at the heart of everything we did, even though I was working in the lab. And I was basically researching like novel molecules for laundry detergents. So that was a whole world that I kind of knew nothing about, but it was just like yeah, the user was at the heart of everything we were doing. Like even if I was running experiments in the lab, I was constantly thinking like, okay, how is this moving the needle on like the experience that we deliver to our customer? And then moving on to IBM, it was kind of like that user centricity still was there, but I feel like I really learned how to do storytelling in a really good way, and especially like technical storytelling, because it's not the easiest thing to be able to portray the technical thing you're building in like a fun, like engaging way. And I had to basically present every week of my project what I was building. And I feel like that really honed in those technical skills, which are super important, regardless of tech or AI or whatever you're working on. And then when I moved to JP Morgan, I was like being thrown into this super complex world of like finance, asset management. And like I really learned how to build software like at scale and how to learn how to build software in a really complex domain, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's tech or AI, like you still need to really understand the complex business process before you even start building. So yeah, I guess it's like user centricity from Procter Gamble. It was technical storytelling at IBM, and then building at scale and learning complex business processes at JP Morgan.
And loads of really valuable experiences at, such an early start in your career. Really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you think about those corporate environments, right? Because, all three of them are very corporate. How did that compare to the research-based work that you'd done and that you'd loved up until that point in your career?
So the Procter Gamble work I was doing was very research-based. And I found that even though that was so different from the research I was doing like recently in AI robotics, I feel like the process you follow when you're doing research is so similar no matter like which domain you are in. So even though that was quite a few years ago, I was like, okay, we're actually following a very similar process to doing research when I was at Procter & Gamble as when I was at university this summer. And I also think in terms of when I compare research to corporate, I think people are at the heart of everything we do. And in the corporate world, like when you're designing for the user, you're thinking, okay, what can we like build today that improves the user's experience or life or whatever tomorrow? Whereas in research, you're thinking about, okay, what can we research and explore today that will improve the user's experience in like, not tomorrow, but like in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years. So it's like still the same problem. We're just operating on different timescales.
Which is a really good way to push it, isn't it? So those fundamental learns that you had very early on have kind of been a process that you can follow throughout the rest of your career, which is amazing. Moving on to building in public and personal branding, which, I think you've done incredibly well. And I'm sure the listeners would love to hear about how did that start? Where did that concept come from and what gave you the, I suppose, confidence to run with it?
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I don't know. I think a lot of people are like, how do you do that? Like, you're like, that must be so scary. You're really putting yourself out there. You're being super vulnerable. And it's never really like worried me that much to be like vulnerable online in that way. And I think I am very conscious and I'm very intentional about like what I want to share. And I definitely do think about like where I want to draw the line there. But I think the rewards for me like so outweigh like anything that I could ever be scared of putting out there. And I also think like in life in general and online, like when you open up and you are vulnerable, that vulnerability is often met with vulnerability. And I think that's where amazing things start and where amazing conversations happen. And I think for me, like I've seen so much of that happen already with the stuff I've been sharing is like people open up to me and then we have an amazing conversation. And that for me is like worth it every single time. So even if it's just like a couple of conversations from a post, like that for me is amazing.
And I suppose that's the big question. So do you think it's being online and having this personal brand and being vulnerable, do you think it has opened doors and created opportunities for you?
Yeah, it absolutely has.
In a word.
Yeah.
So on that, what advice would you give to somebody who, sees what you're doing, wants to do it in their own way? What would be your advice on helping them to get started?
It's definitely a scary thing to do when you first start. And I think the more you do it, it's like kind of a muscle that you like exercise in a way, and it sort of starts to become normal. The main part for me is it should be fun. If it's not fun, why you're doing it? This isn't your full-time job. You're doing it. You either have uni or you're working or whatever. This is your spare time. So like work on stuff you're actually interested in, build projects you're actually interested in, go to events you're interested in. And I think when you're doing something that really aligns with like who you are and you're working and building stuff that like you're super passionate about, it becomes a little bit less scary to share because it's like, I kind of think of it as like, I want more people to know about this and know what I'm excited about. And maybe I'll find other people who are excited about what I'm doing. I would also say finding people, I guess having other people around you who are also doing something similar can make it feel less weird and more normal. And honestly, it seems like a really big deal, but honestly, I don't think it is. And I think people just like, people might see your post and think, oh, that's cool. And then like, that's just a tiny part of their day, even though like that might seem like a massive thing to you. But someone's just probably going to like, they'll move on in like a couple seconds and that's kind of it. And if you post something silly, which you probably won't even do, it's just like, that's also just like a couple seconds of someone's life and they'll probably just scroll past it and think nothing of it. So it's less big a deal than you think.
I think that's a brilliant piece of advice because something that's so important to you and all consuming for you isn't the same for everybody else. So I think if anybody is a little bit scared, even just that little tiny nugget could help them just get started.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, let's talk about AI careers. So there's a load of noise around AI jobs right now. In your own opinion, what do you think are the key traits or skills that would help somebody stand out in what's quite a noisy, crowded job market right now?
I think I can, only talk about like my experience of like the kind of roles and stuff that I've been looking at and I'm going for. That magic combo at the moment is like having the skills as like a software engineer and then bringing that together with like AI, ML, data science skills. And I think if you have that, that's like a winning combo. And if you don't, then it's kind of like looking at where you can upskill yourself in those other areas. And then I think in terms of like traits, I think the willingness to like grow and learn because like we're living in a very fast-paced environment and like AI is not slowing down and it doesn't look like it ever will be at the moment. And someone actually asked me at an event that I was at, like, how do you like keep up with everything that's going on? I just kind of want everything to stop and for me to be able to get good at something. And I think that doesn't really exist anymore. And we kind of have to let that idea go and being comfortable in the uncomfortable of like not really knowing, if that makes sense in terms of, I always think of it as if you have the confidence to be like, okay, I don't know how to solve this problem, but I've solved a really, really hard problem before. So like, there's no reason why I can't go solve this other really hard problem. And I think the more times you do that, then like you grow that kind of confidence in like operating in this like unknown. And I think that's a really, really important skill in the AI space at the moment because like we're solving problems that no one has solved before. So like you have to have that mindset. And it's also super exciting. We get to work on these really hard, challenging problems that no one has solved before. Like that's exciting. Having that mindset is super important.
Yeah. And I think that's really good advice for anybody, isn't it? Because I think gone are the times where we'll ever be able to keep up with the pace. And I think by the time you've learned one thing, it's already evolved another way, another direction. So you can't possibly keep up with everything. What excites you most about where AI is headed in general?
I think we are living in this time where it's like this is like a generational like defining technology and like we get to be alive now, which is maybe really dramatic. It's so exciting. I can do things that I was never capable of doing by myself like a couple of years ago. I can build projects and software and things with AI that would have taken a team of like 10 engineers to do a couple of years ago. And now I can just like sit at home and do it myself. So there's so much possibility out there. And we can just build so much more and do so much more. And the other part of that that's really exciting is that people who were not necessarily builders or coders or technologists before can now be those people. The barrier to entry is like kind of no longer there in the same way that it was before. And like it all really does come back to confidence. I do think if you have the confidence to do something and to build something, most people can do it. All the technology is there and it's kind of crazy. Like what I've seen some really cool people who like don't have a background in tech or coding, building really awesome things. So I think that's super exciting as well.
Yeah, and I think as you say, barrier to entry is a huge thing. And when we talk about the pace and the speed things are moving at, I suppose that the next question is maybe going to be a bit harder to answer, but if we were able to look maybe 3, even 5 years ahead, what role would you like to be playing in the AI space in that time frame?
Honestly, like at this moment in time, I honestly feel like my life doesn't really feel real half the time. I feel like I'm living kind of in this dream, and like I love my life right now. And it's just, for me, it's always been about having the opportunity to like learn and grow, which I'm doing so much of at the moment, working on really hard problems and being surrounded by like fun and interesting people, which is currently kind of what my life is right now. So it's kind of awesome. But I want to be doing that at every stage in my life, whether that's 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And something else that's also kind of on the cards for me is I would love to start my own startup or company at some point in the future. So I still have a lot of exploration to do around that idea, and I don't know what or how or kind of what it's going to look like at the moment. There's still like a lot of unknowns for me there, but I think that could be on like the 3 or 5 year timeline for sure.
And I think, I suppose, just personally, whether it's, unknown what it looks like, I don't think anybody listening to this or who knows you would be in any doubt that that's definitely in the plan at some point. Is totally believable. You can see it already. If you could give 3 pieces of advice to somebody who's just starting out in the AI journey, what would it be?
I think the first one would be to just start somewhere. I think, as we touched on before, there is a lot of noise in the space and it can feel very overwhelming, which I totally understand. But I think if you end up in this place where you don't just start, then you end up trying to make like a really good decision about like what's the best place to start. But you just kind of have to start somewhere and then like kind of figure it out. And the reality is like a lot of people don't really know what they're doing, even if they seem like they know what they're doing. So like if that's enough like comfort in that, like to just go and try something and experiment and maybe fail and then, then reassess where you are on your journey. Like, I think that's a good approach to take. The second thing I would say is make friends in the AI space. I think there's a lot to be gained from just having like natural conversations with friends who are also interested in like AI, and just having people that can be like a sounding board for ideas and like explore different ideas together. And I always I think there's often this thing of, oh, you kind of need like a mentor or something, but actually like your mentors can just be your friends. So if you can just have friends around you who are like on the same journey, a bit behind you, a bit ahead of you, like that's really valuable, I think. And the third one, I know I've said this a lot, is be confident. Like I think a lot of people are trapped in this like self-doubt and not having confidence. But I think once you start and once you get going, you realize what you're capable of. And then when you slowly build that up and you slowly realize what you're capable of, like you can do great, amazing things.
And I love that. And I think it could be applicable to anybody in any journey, not just the AI journey. So thank you so much for sharing that advice. Lastly, tell everybody where we can follow your journey. Where's all the places that you're building to make sure that all our listeners can go find it and keep watching?
Yes, so my full name is Emma Rattray, so you can find me on LinkedIn, which is where I post most of my stuff. You can also find me on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, and my handle is Emma plus AI with like PLUS, not the plus symbol. I've kind of been experimenting a bit with some short form content as well.
I love it. Emma, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to A Class Act. If you've enjoyed the episode, make sure to follow the show so you never miss a conversation. And if you're building a data team or making a key leadership hire, reach out to us at MBN Solution using the link in the show notes.